Welcome to the USHH News Channel, sponsored by Goldfish, the snack that smiles back. I'm your host, Tara Dunnigan, here to talk to you today about unionization, the weather, and some sports updates, sponsored by Cassidy Bayer. Since it's a bit chilly out, we'll be doing the weather inside. On Monday, there's going to be a cold front moving in, so make sure to wear your jackets, and it's going to be raining, so make sure to have that rain jacket that's insulated. Tuesday, it's going to rain some more, but it will come down to a drizzle in the late afternoon. Wednesday, it will be partly sunny with a chance of rain. Here's Raven with some more information on the history segment of tonight's newscast.
Hello, I'm Raven, and I'll be interviewing the historian on today's history segment. I am here with historian Aditi Nandan, who will teach us about the hardworking Americans from this time. Let's start off with what unionization really means.
Unionization, by definition, is the process of organizing the employees of a company into a labor union which will act as an intermediary between the employees and company management. In other words, it is a company coming together and becoming more official. There is much controversy, though, about the factory system from the late 1700s and mid-1800s.
Is it true that the old factory system treated their workers horribly?
Yes, that is true. In the beginning, the early factory system did not have any benefits. Hours were long, wages were low, and there were not many meals given to the workers. Also, these workers were forced to work in unsanitary buildings that were poorly ventilated, lighted, and heated. People didn't have any other choice than to work in such conditions.
Why were these hours so long, yet wages so low? It does not seem right for these workers to be treated like this.
The workers were often abused by the owners of the factories. Not many people had a lot of money at this time, so having a job was very beneficial for them. Workers would do anything for money, even if they weren't treated right and were abused.
Why didn't the workers just quit or ask for raises? Did they even try to stand up for their rights as humans?
The workers weren't able to form labor unions to raise their wages. If they did that, they were seen as criminals. Only 24 strikes were recorded before 1835. They were not looked at as equals to their bosses. The workers were seen as inferior.
Who were the ones who supported the treatment going on in these factories?
The ones who supported the factories are the owners of the factories themselves. They did not care for the treatment of the workers because they only viewed them as their moneymakers. The bosses had no personal connection to the people working in the factory, so they had no sympathy for their hardships. During the Industrial Revolution, the rich got richer because of the concept of unionization, giving them the power to create these companies.
Now that you've brought it up, what sparked the Industrial Revolution in America?
It was the creation of machines that sparked it all. It allowed for mass production of products. One man in particular, Samuel Slater, has been acclaimed the father of the American factory system in America.
What were Slater's main accomplishments in his lifetime?
Slater attempted to reconstruct the essential structure of the initial factory with the aid of a blacksmith and a carpenter. In 1791, he put into operation the first efficient American machine for spinning cotton thread. The first machine tenders were 7 boys and 2 girls, and all of them were under the age of 12. Most of the first factories were in the north as opposed to the south.
Wasn't it dangerous for the children to work long hours in these factories?
Yes, it was. In fact, the children were often injured by the equipment and were abused by the adult workers. They were also much more susceptible to hearing loss and slow growth of their organs and tissue.
Oh wow, I did not know this. In other points of history, we know that most conflicts in the U.S. would occur between the North and the South. How does this relate to unionization during this time?
The South continued to have slaves and did not directly join the ideas of unionization, simply because they did not build factories that would interfere with the plantations. The cotton from the South, though, would be picked and then sent to the North to be processed in the factories. The impact of unionization did not cause a restraint between the North and the South. It benefited both of them in ways of benefiting the country as a whole.
Interesting. I'd like to thank you, Aditi, for your time and knowledge on American history. Now, back to you, Tara.
To give you an image on how life was like inside of these 1830s factories, here's a reenactment of the early 1800s in New York. And this is what life should have been like for these poor little children.
I'm back with another interview with a young child laborer, Sally. How was life working in the factories in the 1830s?
It was pretty tough. I worked just as hard as the adults, but I was only paid 1/4 of what they got. I wasn't really given any meals. I had to work really long hours. I didn't even get a proper education.
Did you like your boss?
Not really. He didn't pay much attention to us or what was going on in the factories itself. There was nothing really personal about it. He just looked at us as like his own chess pieces.
Do you have any hopes for the future of unionization?
Well, I hope so because unions came together to create, I guess, these factories. So I'm hoping we, the people, can come together so we can get wages of what we deserve. So I'm hopeful. I'm only a kid.
I'm back with an interview with Samuel Slater. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a hardworking individual who wanted to improve and create this cotton mill for everyone.
What was your intent in improving the cotton mill?
My intent was to make the work environment more easier and efficient for the workers out there.
Are you happy with the effect it had on people?
I mean, the bad stuff, no, but in the end, it worked out and made America good.
Overall, let's recap the main topics we discussed in tonight's segment. First off, be sure to wear a jacket for the next following days because it's going to be awfully chilly outside. And next, onto unionization. In the beginning, the laborers were treated with disrespect and weren't given fair wages for the amount of work they completed. This eventually led to many strikes caused by the mistreatment of laborers in the 1850s and 60s. The strikes were growing more and more popular as time passed because the factories continued to thrive in business. I'm back with historian Aditi to talk about unionization. How was unionization different in the 1850s and 60s compared to the earlier times?
Throughout the 1850s and 60s, people began to strike more because of how poorly they were treated in these factories. And this wasn't going to change because of how rapidly the factories were growing.
What was causing the factories to keep growing?
The factories continued to grow because of the large number of European immigrants who desperately needed jobs.
What were some examples of why people were striking?
An example of why people would strike would be just to be given more human demands. So, for example, workers striked to get 8-hour workdays instead of being worked all day long.
Thank you, historian Aditi, for talking to us about unionization. Now, to Cassidy about sports.
These are some fun facts related to the time period we just talked about. Most adult wage workers during the 1820s and 30s gave their loyalty to the Democratic Party of Andrew Jackson. The first celebrated U.S. Labor Day was on September 5th, 1882 in New York City, and it was for the hardworking laborers. New York and Oregon were some of the first states to propose the idea of Labor Day. Throughout the Great Depression in the 1930s, the Congress of Industrial Organizations was formed, many of them members heavily supporting unionization. Many states were added to the country during this time, such as Indiana, Arkansas, Florida, Texas, Iowa, and Wisconsin. The most famous union remains the American Federation of Labor, founded in 1886. At its peak, the AFL had about 1.4 million members.
Hi, I'm Cassidy. I'm here to close out the night with talking about sports at HHS. Spring sports have just started, but it's still cold out, so beware of windburn and bring your jackets. Also, we're hoping for a very successful track season like we have in past years. But good luck to all athletes at HHS, and have a good night. Back to you, Tara.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of USHH News. Thank you and have a wonderful night.